Now, Presgrove suffered a fractured skull, broken ribs. His teeth were knocked out, scattered near his body. Tuesday, the county's medical examiner revealing his cause of death as multiple blunt force injuries. While the report answers how he died, the manner of death, what caused those blunt force injuries, remains a mystery.
Welcome back, and thanks for being here. Now, when there's excessive drinking at parties, things can quickly get out of hand. And that can happen even quicker when the participants at that party are underage. That's likely what happened in today's story, but as of right now, no one knows what went down that night, or who was responsible for Noah's death. Noah Alexander Presgrove was born on May 14, 2004 in Duncan, Oklahoma, to his parents Casey Elliott and Victor Presgrove. Noah was a lifelong resident of Comanche, Oklahoma, and he had 8 siblings. He had just recently graduated from Comanche High School in June of 2023, and Noah and his cousin actually had plans to join the military together the following year. Noah was also an accomplished athlete while he'd been at Comanche High School. He'd played football, wrestled, and ran cross-country and track. Noah was additionally said to be very outgoing, and he was known to be the class clown as well as very spontaneous. He was a great friend, a country boy, and a bit of a ladies' man. Additionally, Noah loved the outdoors, skateboarding, and anything to do with being on the water. Noah had emancipated himself when he was just 17, and at the time of this story, he was living with his grandmother and great-grandmother. His grandmother had helped to raise Noah since his mother Casey struggled with substance abuse throughout his youth. And Noah was always very helpful to both his grandmother and great-grandmother, making sure that they were always well taken care of. In the early morning hours on September 4th, 2023, just before 6 a.m., a man named Tyler Hardy was driving down Interstate 81 near Terrell, Oklahoma. It was still dark outside, and he was heading into work. As he was driving down the poorly lit highway, suddenly Tyler saw in his truck's headlights something lying in the road. So he stopped to see what it was. He then realized that it was the body of a young man. The male body was curled up in a fetal position and completely naked, except for a pair of mismatched shoes. It was the body of Noah Presgrove, and he had some horrific injuries. His head looked to be bashed in, and he was missing multiple teeth, which were found scattered around him, some up to 12 feet away. There was also a pair of white shorts lying neatly folded close to Noah, and his metal chain necklace was near him as well, but it had been split into 3 separate pieces. There was very little blood on the teen's body, except for the small amount that was coming out of his ears and the top of his head. A few yards away from where his body was found, there was a spot of blood, but it was a very small amount, especially considering the horrific injuries that he had suffered. The man who had stopped and seen Noah on the side of the road, Tyler Hardy, called 911, and while he was waiting for first responders to arrive, another man who had been driving a truck in front of him down US 81 stopped and turned around to go wait with Tyler. Both men wanted to make sure that the scene remained undisturbed.
Hey, on Highway 81, just north of Terrell, in between Terrell and Ryan, Oklahoma, probably about 3 miles north of Terrell. Driving down the road, and I had a bunch of cars behind me, but it looked like somebody got hit, like somebody walking down the highway laying on the shoulder of the road.
It looks like somebody's laying in the road?
Like on the shoulder, like maybe they were walking and somebody hit them, unless it was a deer. It looked like a body.
Okay. You said, so on Highway 81,
In
north.
between Ryan and Terrell, just north of Terrell, probably about 3 miles. It's kind of in a low spot.
Okay. And is that gonna be? I'm trying to think which way that highway runs. Is it gonna be on your east, west, north, or south? I'm trying to think. I'm sorry.
It goes north and south. It runs out of Duncan.
Okay. So what side of the road is that on?
It'd be on the west side of the road.
Okay. Let me see who I have on duty to go check that out.
That's it. It looked awful odd.
Okay. What is your name and number so if the officer has any questions?
It's Tyler 580.
I will get a hold of the officer and go get it checked out.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day. 911, what is your emergency?
Yes, ma'am. I was driving to work. I'm south of Terrell, or north of Terrell, south of Ryan.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure there's somebody laying dead along the road. They look naked. I'm staying back.
Okay, I just had 2 calls on that, and I have a deputy headed that way.
All right. Well, I'm
And
sitting here blocking the road.
Oh, are you there waiting? Okay.
Because he's the body's laying right on a white line.
Oh, dang. It is a boy. He's naked, and he's laying on the white line. He's naked?
I turned around because I just about hit it because there's a deer run across the road. And I'm like, first I thought it was a deer, and I was talking to a guy I work with. I'm like, I don't think that's a deer.
Yeah, that's what my first caller said, thought it was a deer, and then when he looked back and he said, no, there's no way that's a deer.
No. And it actually looks like there's a piece of clothing maybe laying in the middle of the road now. I don't want to get too close.
Jeremy right now. No, this is another 911 call that's looking at it.
Oh, she's already been in touch with Jeremy.
Okay. Yeah, Jeremy's going to head that way.
Jeremy's heading that way. She's on the
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so you're staying there, or?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and make sure nobody runs it over or anything else. I mean,
I have a art reporting party staying there until a deputy gets there to block so nobody hits them again.
There is the reporting party is going to sit there with flashers on until...
Okay, I appreciate it. Can I get your name and,
Now, the last time that Noah had been seen was at a 4-day, 22nd birthday celebration that had taken place at a house that was about a mile down the road from where his body had been found. The party had been for Noah's good friend, who was named Avery Jo Combs. Her family are wealthy landowners in the area around Terrell, Oklahoma, and beyond. In some news publications, Avery is referred to as Noah's girlfriend. However, they were said to just be sleeping together. The big birthday bash had been advertised to friends on Snapchat, and it was held at Avery's family's home, one of 3 on a small dirt road off the highway, 1.2 miles north of town and surrounded by lots of fields. About 40 people showed up, coming and going over the course of the weekend, with a lot of underage drinking going on as well. Videos of these increasingly drunk antics began to pop up online, and Noah was seen in many of the videos throughout the weekend. In one that was posted on Saturday, September 2nd, it showed some of Noah's friends, including Avery, doodling and writing their names on his bare buttocks as well as other parts of his body in Sharpie marker. The first night of the party, Noah spent at the birthday girl's home, but he went home the following morning to sleep off his hangover and freshen up. When he went back the following day, for one reason or another, he decided to have someone come pick him up and drive him to the party, and he left his car at home. Also, at some point during that night, Noah would get into a fight with his best friend, who was named Jack Newton. Now, Jack and Noah had been best friends for years, and like any friends, they had their occasional argument. The confrontation between the two had happened that night, right after Jack had seen Noah huddled in the corner talking to his girlfriend, who was named Carter Combs, Avery's sister. Noah was also known to get very friendly and flirty when he was drinking. Though another friend would say that the argument was actually because Noah was upset that Jack always flirted with girls that he liked, and Noah seemed pretty pissed about it. But according to Jack, they had actually argued about girls for a bit, but then ended up holding each other, crying, and telling each other how much they meant to one another. As the night continued, Noah was involved in even more drunken hijinks, including him daring his friends to slap him across the face as they partied outside underneath the patio. In a video that was posted that night, Noah was seen repeatedly insisting that his friend Brylan Sweat hit him across the face. Brylan would eventually hit Noah, but he only gave him a light tap before he ran away out of fear of retaliation. About the same time, a concerning video appeared showing one of the teenagers at the party holding a rifle with Noah visible in the foreground. Then there was another fight that night between Noah and his friend Mikey. This had come after Mikey thought that Noah had taken his phone. Noah's family said that there was a video of the altercation between Mikey and Noah that was posted to social media, in which Mikey had fish-hooked Noah, and Noah had then bitten his finger in retaliation. But others who were at the party insisted that the argument had never gotten physical. Either way, Mikey's phone would end up later being found lying underneath someone who was sleeping on the couch, and he and Noah would make up. Noah had also been driving an ATV that belonged to his friend Jack at one point during the night, and he had also flipped that ATV, but he had come away unharmed, and everyone at the party said that he didn't have any cuts, bruises, or any type of visible injuries. Jack would say that Noah had to have flipped the ATV sometime after he had gone to bed, which was at 1:50 a.m. He knew this because Noah had come into his room, he said, to grab the keys for the ATV. Now, the reason that Jack had gone to bed so much earlier than the other partygoers was because he claimed he was going fishing on Waruka Lake with his father early the next morning. Now, the details of what happened next vary wildly, especially the time frame, depending on who you talk to. It's said that after Noah had flipped the ATV, even though he wasn't injured, he was very dirty, and he was too drunk to shower on his own. So Avery's sister Carter, along with a girl named Jasmine Milan, assisted Noah in taking a shower. There was said to have been a video taken of this and posted to Facebook. However, it was shortly after deleted and has not since reemerged. Some people said that in the video, Noah seemed alert and he was joking with the girls. But others who saw the video said that Noah was very drunk and barely alert at all. After Noah had showered, his friends said that they helped him to put on a pair of white shorts that belonged to one of Noah's friends. Earlier that night, as you can see in videos, Noah had been wearing a pair of black shorts, but the white ones were the ones that had been found lying next to his dead body. Soon after that, Noah argued for a little bit with Avery because he wanted to go to bed with her, but she told him that he couldn't because he had messed with one of her friends the night before, so he could sleep on the floor. Now, this argument with Avery got Noah rather upset, and he decided to wander off into the night. He would never again be seen alive. Exactly when Noah had left the party early that morning was unclear, but his friends estimated that it was between 3:15 and 3:30 a.m. And they said that this was not unusual for Noah to do at parties, so they didn't think that anything was different about him leaving and cooling off that night. Also, before Noah had left, he had mistakenly put one of his friend's Hey Dude brand slides on one of his feet and then one of his own Adidas sandal slides on his other foot, which is why he had been found wearing mismatched shoes. At 3:41 in the morning, Jasmine would post a Snapchat with the caption, "Well, Noah's missing." At that point, she thought that he had just wandered off to cool down and he would be back shortly. She had no idea that something bad had happened to him at that point. Noah's friend Jack said that those who were still awake eventually did go looking for Noah, though they were not in fear for his safety. They figured he was just hiding from them, and he thought it was funny. They didn't find him, and they eventually ended up just going home, assuming that Noah would turn up at some point. Noah's family also claimed that they saw video footage of Avery and Carter screaming at each other on the porch that night about Noah wandering off, but that footage also has never emerged. Shortly before 6 a.m. on Monday, September 4th, Jack had woken up to go fishing with his father, and he realized at that point that Noah was still missing. He had never returned back. But he wasn't worried about his friend for one reason or another, and he texted his father, Caleb, at 5:53 a.m., coincidentally the same time the 911 call was placed, and told him that he was on his way. Jack had then gotten into his vehicle and left for the lake, driving north until he came across the scene where Noah's body had been discovered. Jack had told his father, Caleb, that he had found Noah's body, and he texted him. By the time Jack's father, Caleb, arrived on the scene at 6:18 a.m., Jefferson County Sheriff's deputies had also arrived and were securing the scene. The autopsy of Noah's body was extensive and didn't come back until months after his death in May of 2024. It revealed many, many injuries to his body. In the hours before his death, Noah had suffered 10 broken ribs, serious skull and neck fractures, internal bleeding, and abrasions all over his body. The skin on the left side of Noah's scalp was torn off to the bone, and a clump of hair and skin was found in the middle of the highway. Additionally, a clump of hair was found on his right buttocks without blood or tissue on it. An extensive skull fracture ran across Noah's head, along with multiple smaller ones. Police investigators had actually described his head as being caved in. His upper and lower teeth were broken, with few fragments, and some were found inside his mouth, with others scattered across the road a few feet away from his body. He was also missing multiple teeth, including a molar that had broken in half, and he had a deep laceration to the left side of his tongue. Noah was also bleeding out of his ears, had a cut on his lower lip, 2 punctured lungs, injuries on his heart, spleen, and stomach, and internal bleeding of around 3.2 pints. Multiple grazes were also found on his body, including his torso and both buttocks. 4 of Noah's vertebrae were fractured to varying degrees, and 1 was displaced, indicating a serious broken neck of the same kind that people who are executed by hanging suffer. On top of all that, Noah had road rash on his upper back, left eyebrow, the corner of his left eye, left cheek, left ear, right neck, and behind his right ear. His fingertips were shredded, and he also had abrasions from grazes on his left shoulder, left arm, left side of his torso, and both buttocks. The autopsy report also said that only a stick figure drawing and marker was found on his right thigh. The other Sharpie drawings from the party had been washed off at some point, though no one knows exactly when. And Noah's toxicology report showed that he had a blood alcohol content level of 0.14, but no drugs whatsoever in his system. It said that the combination, as well as the nature of Noah's injuries, make it highly unlikely that they all occurred from one event. The type of injuries that he had, skull fractures, broken ribs, internal bleeding, brain damage, shredded fingertips, and more typically result from different types of traumas. And Noah's injuries were widespread and severe, which suggests multiple traumatic events or a prolonged period of assault. There was also the lack of immediate blood evidence where Noah's body had been found, implying that he was likely injured elsewhere, then his body was moved. The medical examiner would determine that Noah Presgrove had died from multiple blunt force injuries, though his cause of death was undetermined. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol, who was leading the investigation, said shortly after the release of Noah's autopsy report that what had happened to Noah was not the result of a hit and run, because his injuries were not consistent with being hit by a vehicle. There were also no vehicle parts or debris observed on the scene, indicating that Noah was almost certainly not hit by a car. Even though his death was ruled as suspicious, for some reason, authorities are not investigating it as a homicide. They have said, however, that they have not ruled out manslaughter.
He just said that Noah was in an accident, and so I thought he was in the hospital, you know, and so I come by and I pick up my dad, and we started driving down there, and it's only a 30-minute drive from Comanche, but that drive felt like 2 hours just sitting in silence. And then we show up, and Jack and Caleb and the Jefferson County Sheriff was there, and Noah was covered up on the side of the road with the tarp, and it was just kind of a good 10 minutes just staring at fields, just and a loss of words, you know. When we show up there, everything's going through our minds of what in the world could. Because it doesn't look like a hit and run sort of situation, you know. And some weeks go by, and we, you know, they finally rule out the hit and run, and that 4-day party turned into something awful that happened within just a short hour time span for him. I believe this is his tooth. right here. His pants were folded up on that square mark.
His pants were there. His tooth was right there in that circle?
I believe so, yeah. And his body was here. And he was in the fetal position, facing that way. And his body was covered up with a tarp or a blanket type of thing. And as you're looking at it, you can see blood seeping through the covering and onto the ground. As I'm looking at it, it just seems weird. The placement of the body, the tooth, the shorts, where they're at, doesn't look like a hit and run. Not that I've been aware of.
And have you ever heard them say foul play is suspected?
I've heard suspected of foul play, suspicious death. And again, they don't tell me everything because they don't want to ruin the investigation, but they said that they've got a couple of people in mind on the situation, and that they're really looking in on them. So,
are you able to tell me who those people are?
They haven't told me.
But they have said that they have a few people in mind.
Yeah.
Interesting. Somebody's got to know something.
Somebody's got to know something. If there's 40 people standing around and someone walks off, somebody knows about it. So if 40 people are standing around and somebody gets into a fight, somebody knows about it, and with how close everyone is, with how many pictures are taken on Snapchat, you think that something has to turn up. Somebody has to know something and just doesn't want to say it.
Now, police had a few theories in regards to how Noah had possibly died. Their first theory was that he had been pushed out of the back of a moving pickup truck, and he had fallen and hit his head on the road. Then Noah had gotten up, staggered a bit, before he then collapsed again on the pavement, which is why there had been a few small blood spots found. But while this theory is possible, it's also highly unlikely due to the lack of injuries that were found on Noah's lower half of his body. Additionally, there's the theory that due to the high amount of alcohol that Noah had consumed at the party, his friends had not realized how hurt he really was after the ATV incident. This could have been because his injuries were internal. And if Noah was slurring his words or walking weirdly, his friends could have just assumed this was from him drinking. The ATV crash could have possibly caused Noah internal bleeding, which slowly killed him, as it would have been from a small laceration to his lung. After he left the party that night, Noah could have been walking along the side of the highway when he collapsed from the internal bleeding. Then a car came along and hit him in the head. However, if that was the case, it still would be considered a hit and run because no one else has come forward yet. More than likely, Noah was killed elsewhere, and then his body was brought to the scene where it was found. So no one knew what had actually happened to Noah. Even though Noah had left the party on his own, and he had no car to drive back home, he wouldn't have been trying to walk back to where he lived because he lived over 30 miles away from where the party was taking place. His family had also never received any phone calls late that night or early that morning from Noah, asking them for a ride anywhere. Friends and family of Noah who had seen his face after his death said that it looked like he had been beaten up by 5 different dudes. His nose and cheekbone looked to be broken. Whether it was murder or a fight that went too far that night, many people were not convinced about police's theories. Now, suspicion had fallen onto Noah's friends who had been at the party that night. But all of them claimed they had no idea how he had died, and none of them possibly could have hurt him. But the friends had been giving a lot of conflicting information to authorities, and things were not adding up. There was also the fact that right around the time that Noah's body had been found, social media posts that the teens had put up during the party began to disappear. There had been a lot of underage drinking going on at the party, so maybe they were just afraid of getting in trouble for that. But oddly enough, Jack's girlfriend, Carter, Avery's sister, told police at first that she didn't even know who Noah was. Now, her sister was sleeping with Noah, and she was dating his best friend Jack, Why she would sit there and say that she didn't know Noah, I have no idea, because she later changed her story and told police that she did know him. Carter had also wiped her phone as well. Now, what happened to Noah's clothing and belongings from that night is also unknown. His family claims that his clothes, including his American flag tank top that he'd worn to the party that night, was cut up and distributed amongst his friends as mementos by Jack's father, Caleb. Caleb, however, dismisses this as a baseless rumor. Speaking of Caleb, Jack's father, there is also the rumor that Noah had walked in on him getting oral sex from another partygoer that night. So did that have anything to do with the reason why Noah had been found dead? A few days prior to Noah's death, he had actually gotten a new phone, and he had taken this along with his old phone with him to the party. However, he had left them behind at Avery's house and never brought them with him when he wandered off. His wallet was also never found. When authorities had pinged both of Noah's phones, they found something interesting. Both of the phones had been pinged going to the location where Noah's body had been found, and then they pinged going back to Avery's house. Individuals from the party claimed that Noah's phones had actually gotten left inside the ATV, and then they had taken the ATV out to look for Noah. They said they had gone right to the area where his body had been found, but at the time, there was nothing there, which sounds super fishy to me. It's also said that several teens had been using golf clubs that night, and several of them were later found in the trash can. This has led to the theory that maybe, after the fight with Jack, Noah had been beaten up by one or multiple people with golf clubs. Then, he was dragged by Jack and the others to the side of the road where he'd been found. Here's what Jack had to say about his best friend's death.
I ran over here, asked him if Noah was okay, and the semi-truck driver had his hands on Noah like this. And so I just kind of, and I could just tell, that he was not okay. He was laying on his side, and he just had his eyes closed, And he had a cut on his forehead. Like, it wasn't just like terrible, it was just a cut on his forehead. The top of his hair was scraped off his head, and there was blood on his ears. 100% in my heart think that he was hit. I think he got hit on the top of his head by a semi. And that shoe that was on good just stayed on. I don't know. I can't explain any of it,
Is there any part of you that believes that he might have been beaten to death?
No, he was not beaten to death.
Why not?
Because just the injuries, you just could tell he's not. And I said, okay, I'll take the polygraph test. I took the polygraph test, and it was nerve-wracking, of course. I had these two things on my fingers. I had a butt pad and then my feet thing, and these things around my chest. And I didn't even get to look at the guy. I was looking straight forward, and he was talking to me, asking me questions.
There's a lot of online chatter, and I think that's the reason why they're asking for you to take a polygraph test about you and your father. Tell me about what that experience has been like for you to have to handle that type of discussion happening all around you.
I think the reason that I got brought into it is because, going through high school, you did not hear Jack's name without Noah and Noah without Jack. We were just always together. He lived with us for a while, and we were just always at each other's houses. And I think when everybody heard something happened to Noah, they just said, "What about Jack?" And just, I don't know. I don't know where all the crazy talk's coming from. Just sucks.
Do you feel good to kind of be past that a little bit with the polygraph test? Do you believe that you're past that or no?
People saying stuff. People are saying like it's easy to pass a polygraph and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know. You can't really control what people say about it. You just know what you know. And I've put my personal number on Facebook and said, if you want to talk about it, I'll talk about it.
So what has these last 7 months been like for you?
It's always been the hardest time of my life. And on top of other people saying everything, just been the hardest time of my life.
Another thing that was odd was when Noah's body had been found, the white shorts that he was supposedly wearing were neatly folded near his body. And they were undamaged, despite the grazes that Noah had on his buttocks, and even the slip-on shoes that he had been wearing had debris and grass stuck on them, while the white shorts were completely clean. After Noah's body was found, Jack's father Caleb said that he had stayed at the scene for hours before it was cleared and processed, and then he went back to the party house to grab his son's ATV. No one should be allowed to stay at a crime scene for hours, and police had also let others stay there for a long period of time too, not just Caleb, meaning that the crime scene where Noah's body was found was not properly processed. Around the same time that Caleb arrived back to the party house, Jasmine and Stephanie Milan's mother, Renee Milan, had arrived as well to help get rid of the rest of the party guests and clean up the home. And the extent of this cleanup has also been hotly debated on social media, with some claiming that there was a very strong smell of bleach coming from the house just hours later. But the adults that were there cleaning up the home insist that they were just cleaning up from the party and there was no attempt at all to hide any crime scene. And Jack's father, Caleb, also removed multiple guns from the home and took them back to his house and said he later got them back to their rightful owners. Now, it didn't come out until months after Noah had died that another teen who had been at the party that night, named Caden Presgrove, had told authorities quite a different story than the stories that many of the teens at the party had been telling. Noah's best friend Jack had claimed that he had first found out that Noah was dead when he had been on his way to meet his dad for their fishing trip, and he had come across Noah's body by the side of the road. But Caden Presgrove had come out and said that Noah's body had actually been found earlier than Jack claimed. According to Caden, Jack had come tearing through the door early in the morning, yelling, "Noah's dead." He was frantic and tearing up, but then he burst right back out through the door and got in his truck and left. Caden, who was exhausted and thought he had only gotten maybe a few hours of sleep at that point, looked at his phone to see what time it was, and he noticed that it was 5:15 a.m. Caden said that he had then awoken the other 3 boys who had been sleeping near him, Mikey, Isaac Rojas, and Brylan Sweat. He told them that Jack had just come in and told him that Noah was dead. The 4 boys then jumped into Caden's Jeep and drove down to where Noah's body was. Now, a few hours prior to this, at 3:20 in the morning, Caden had received a phone call from one of his family members. And at that point, 2 of the boys who had been sleeping on the couches and floor near him were in different positions than they were when he had woken up again at 5:15 a.m. So Caden wasn't sure if maybe they had woken up in the last few hours to do something and switched positions. Either way, when the 4 boys arrived at the scene, sometime between 5:20 and 5:25 a.m., they were just behind Jack as he pulled off to the side of the road, and police were not yet there. There was, however, a service truck driver, Caden said. Caden had also claimed that when he saw Noah's body lying there, it was contorted, and he had been wearing black shorts, the same black shorts that he had been seen wearing in videos earlier from the party, not the white ones that had been found lying on the side of the road. Now, Noah's autopsy report, remember, had said that he was naked except for his pair of mismatched shoes. He had no shorts on at all. And Noah's friends said that they had put on the pair of white shorts after Noah had taken a shower. Caden had actually been interviewed by police back in October of 2023, and he had given them this same story. Caden had gone on to tell police that after he had seen his friend Noah's body lying on the road, he had gone back to his Jeep and pulled out a blue blanket to put over his body because he didn't want people to be staring at him, and he didn't want him lying out there in the open like that. But right as he was walking back to Noah's body, he was told by someone to leave, but he doesn't remember by who. Initially, Caden said that he thought the truck driver had sternly told him to get out of there. But months later, Jack insisted that it was him who told Caden to leave. Caden also said that he didn't call 911 that morning because he assumed since there was already other people at the scene, 911 had already been called. But it hadn't. When Caden got back to the party house, he claimed that the girls who were still there asked him if it was true, if Noah was really dead. And upon hearing the news, the girls had burst into tears. Caden had not been able to sleep after that, so he decided to go into the living room and turn on the TV. He said that the girls had later joined him. And Jasmine's mother, Renee Milan, had arrived just before sunrise, which on that day was at 7:06 a.m. Around the time that Renee Milan arrived, Caleb Newton also got back to the party house. And Caden said it was his idea for them to get rid of all the alcohol containers and clean up the house so that no one knew there was any underage drinking going on. At that point, he also said they thought that Noah had been the victim of a hit and run, so they did not think they were cleaning up any potential crime scene. While they were cleaning up, Renee Milan had asked where the guns in the house were. And they gave them to her to remove them from the house as another possible complication. Caden took the remaining alcohol with him, and then he gave Mikey, Isaac, and Brylan rides home, before he then went back to his house around 8 a.m. and told his mother what had happened. Caden additionally told police that he does not remember Noah leaving the party that night. But Jasmine Milan, who was Avery's best friend, had informed him that Noah had walked off a little before 2 a.m. This was more than an hour before Noah was previously said to have walked away. Jack had said that Noah had gone into his room shortly before 2 a.m. to get the keys to go on the ATV. And he wouldn't wander off until after the ATV ride, after he had crashed it, after he had taken a shower, and after he had a fight with Avery, so that makes no sense. And Jack insists that Caden just got his times wrong. Other people at the party say the same. But Jack also insists that Caden had only gotten to the scene when it was light outside. Which in either timeline can't be true, since like I said, sunrise was at 7:06 in the morning. So either way, they got there before that. The man who had found Noah's body by the side of the road, Tyler Hardy, and his wife have also come out and called Caden a liar and think that he's covering something up. Tyler insisted that he never saw Caden at the scene and he only ever saw or spoke to Jack. But the thing is, Caden had described to police in his initial interview exactly how Noah's body had been found lying. And Caden also said that the service truck he'd seen that morning didn't even look like Tyler's Ford F-150 because it had had a flatbed and equipment in the back of it. He said the service truck actually looked like some government-type road worker vehicle. So it's possible that Caden had seen a different vehicle, and by the time that Tyler had gotten there and called 911, it was gone. Renee Milan also had previously said on a Facebook post that she had received a phone call from her daughter between 5:45 a.m. and 6, and it had taken her about 40 to 45 minutes to get to the party home after that. This contradicted what Jack said, because her daughter Jasmine would only have known that Noah was dead if Caden's timeline was the correct one. There are also conflicting opinions on whether or not police ever searched the house where the party was held. Noah's family claimed that the Oklahoma Highway Patrol told them that there was no evidence where Noah's body had been found linking him back to the party house. And there was no evidence that a crime had even been committed, so they were unable to get a search warrant. But others claim that police were allowed on the property soon after Noah's body had been found. And they had even been shown where the ATV had crashed earlier in the night. But they never did a forensic search. There are still no answers in Noah's death, and his family, friends, and concerned locals are still hoping that his case will soon be solved. Multiple Facebook groups have thousands of members discussing his death around the clock with hundreds of comments a day. And many of them are angry at the friends who were at the party, as well as their families, whom they accuse of covering up the crime. Oklahoma's Department of Public Safety has stated that while authorities are not currently investigating the case as a murder, their investigation is not over. However, Noah's family has not been happy with the way the investigation has gone so far, and they have hired a private investigator who has supposedly uncovered a lot more information that has not yet been released. The community of Comanche came together on September 7, 2023 for a candlelight vigil in honor of Noah Presgrove. A moment of silence was also held prior to that week's Comanche-Marlowe football game in remembrance of the teen. A funeral was held for Noah Presgrove on Monday, September 11, 2023, in the Comanche High School Gymnasium. He was then buried at Fair Lawn Cemetery. On what would have been Noah's 20th birthday, May 14th, 2024, his mother, along with other family and friends, went to the cemetery where he was buried. Here, they decorated his grave, released balloons, and sang happy birthday to Noah.
This was time for family, friends, and strangers to focus on what they did know, and that's who Noah was as a person.
He was very joyful. He was a jokester. He loved his family. He loved life. He loved sports.
Elliot says this is something she planned on doing by herself, but when others heard, they wanted to support.
When I heard about it, it just kind of hurt because I did only meet him the once, but he made an impact on me when I met him that one time. It's easy to see from all of the videos about him, the posts about him, everything. He was a good kid. He had a good heart.
Over a dozen cars showed up to the cemetery where they all sang happy birthday as part of family tradition.
How is it knowing that people who you've never met in your life know Noah's story and are in support?
It makes me feel like I raised a good boy, a good man. It brings a smile to my face, joy to my heart that, he had a good head on his shoulders, and I'm proud of that.
So what really happened to Noah Presgrove that night? There's no way that Noah just wandered off and got hit by a car. He would have bled a lot more than what was found at the crime scene, and almost every time someone's hit by a car, they get knocked right out of their shoes. Noah had just his shoes on. Not to mention, they were slide-ons, which would have come off very easily. His friends absolutely know more than they're saying, and I think that Jack has something to do with what happened to Noah that night. Not only did his interview just sound kind of off, there's been way too many discrepancies in not only Jack's story, but many of the other partygoers' stories as well. What do you think? Hopefully, police will be able to figure out soon what happened to Noah that night and place one or more people under arrest, because there's no way this was just an accident. So if you like true crime and you want to hear it from me, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button below and turn on your notifications too, so you'll know when I upload a new video, which is at least twice every week. Thanks for watching A Wicked World today. Until next time, take care guys. Bye. Thank you to all the patrons of A Wicked World. Now, there's even more of A Wicked World on Patreon. So check it out at patreon.com/awickedworld or use the Patreon app. You'll have access to exclusive videos each month and more. Any support truly helps to make sure the victims never get forgotten and to highlight the shortcomings of society associated with each case. Do you have a suggestion for a case you'd like to see me cover? If so, send me an email at awickedworldtruecrime@gmail.com.